The listing looks normal at first glance. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a small backyard, nothing fancy. Then you see the price, $500,000. And something feels off, because this house used to be the kind of place a regular family could actually buy.
What makes this scary isn't that the house is expensive. It's that almost everyone you know has quietly accepted that this price is normal, even though the math says it isn't. And today I'm going to prove step by step why a $500,000 house in 2026 is unaffordable for almost everyone, including people who think they're doing well. This isn't about vibes or opinions. This is just mechanics. By the end of this video, you're going to know exactly what income it takes to buy this house without becoming house poor, why most buyers don't actually meet that number, and how the system quietly pushes people into purchases that mathematically don't work. Let's start with the number everyone skips past: the monthly payment. When most people hear $500,000 house, they don't think in total cost, they think in monthly terms, because that's how the entire housing industry sells homes. Not on price, on payment. So let's build this from the ground up, using conservative, realistic assumptions for 2026. Not worst case, not best case, just normal. First, the purchase price, $500,000. Let's assume a 20% down payment because that's what avoids private mortgage insurance and is often treated as the responsible move. 20% of $500,000 is $100,000. That alone already eliminates a massive portion of buyers, but we'll come back to that. That leaves a $400,000 mortgage. Now we need an interest rate. In 2026, assuming rates ease slightly but don't return to the free money era, a realistic fixed 30-year mortgage might sit around 6.5%. That's not a prediction, it's a middle ground. At 6.5% on a $400,000 loan over 30 years, the principal and interest payment comes out to roughly $2,500 per month. But that is not the housing cost. That's just the debt service. Next comes property taxes. In many parts of the country, property taxes run around 1% of home value per year, sometimes more, sometimes slightly less. On a $500,000 home, that's $5,000 a year, or about $420 a month. Then homeowner's insurance. On a house like this, let's call it $150 a month. Again, conservative. Then maintenance. This is the cost nobody budgets for, even though it is guaranteed. Roofs wear out, water heaters fail, HVAC systems die. A common rule of thumb is 1% of home value per year. That's another $5,000 a year, or $420 a month. Now add it all together. $2,500 for principal and interest, $420 for taxes, $150 for insurance, $420 for maintenance. That's roughly $3,490 per month. Call it $3,500 to keep the math clean. This is the real monthly cost of owning a $500,000 house. Not the Zillow payment, not the lender estimate, the real cost. Now here's the key rule that actually matters. Housing affordability isn't about whether you can technically make the payment this month. It's about ratios. Most financial guidelines say your total housing costs should not exceed 30% of your gross monthly income. Some lenders allow higher. That doesn't make it safe. It just makes it approved. So if $3,500 is 30% of your income, what does that imply? It implies a gross monthly income of about $11,600. Multiply that by 12, $140,000 per year. That is the income required to comfortably afford a $500,000 house under conservative assumptions. Not survive it, not stretch into it, afford it. And this is where the illusion collapses. Because when most people picture someone making $140,000, they imagine someone rich. But statistically, that income puts you well above the median household. And yet, even at that level, the house is only just barely reasonable. Now let's talk about how many people actually earn that. The median household income in the United States sits far below $100,000. Even among dual-income households, breaking $140,000 is not common outside specific professions or high-cost metro areas. And ironically, high-cost metro areas usually come with even higher housing prices and taxes, which push the required income even higher. So who is actually buying these homes? The answer isn't people who can comfortably afford them. It's people who are stretching, leveraging, and betting that future income or appreciation will bail them out. Let's look at what happens when buyers don't have that $100,000 down payment, because most don't. If instead of putting 20% down, a buyer puts 10% down, that's $50,000. The loan jumps to $450,000. The monthly payment rises. Mortgage insurance appears. The total monthly housing cost pushes closer to $3,800 or $4,000. Now, the income required jumps again, closer to $150,000 a year. And if the buyer puts 5% down, which is extremely common, the math gets uglier fast. This is how people making $90,000 end up buying $500,000 houses. Not because it makes sense, but because the system allows it. And this is where psychology enters the picture. Humans anchor to what's available. When every listing starts with a 4 or 5, the brain recalibrates. 500,000 stops sounding expensive. It starts sounding normal. This is called normalization bias. When abnormal conditions persist long enough, they feel normal even when the math is broken. Add in social pressure, friends buying homes, parents asking when you'll buy. The idea that renting is wasting money, and suddenly the decision stops being analytical and becomes emotional. Now let's talk about the down payment itself, because this is another silent filter. Saving $100,000 requires either time, unusually high income, help from family, or a previous housing win. For someone earning $80,000 a year, saving $100,000 after taxes while also paying rent can easily take a decade or more. That means many first-time buyers simply cannot meet the down payment requirement without sacrificing emergency funds or retirement savings. And that introduces fragility. Because the moment something goes wrong, job loss, medical expense, unexpected repair, the house becomes a trap instead of an asset. Now zoom out one level. Why does this matter systemically? Because housing affordability isn't just about individual choices, it's about incentives. Lenders are incentivized to approve larger loans. Agents are incentivized to push higher prices. Builders are incentivized to build luxury because margins are better. Cities are incentivized to restrict supply through zoning. Every part of the system benefits from higher prices except the buyer. And when prices detach from incomes, the only way transactions continue is through leverage and risk. That's exactly what we're seeing. The market hasn't become affordable. Buyers have become more stretched. Now let's address the most common rebuttal. But rents are high too. Yes, they are. And that's part of the same problem. Housing scarcity pushes up both rents and prices. But high rent does not magically make an unaffordable purchase affordable. It just makes both options painful. Affordability is not about comparing two bad choices and picking the less bad one. It's about understanding the underlying math so you don't confuse pressure with logic. Here's the uncomfortable truth. A $500,000 house in 2026 is not a middle-class purchase. It's an upper-middle-class purchase pretending to be normal. Most buyers who purchase at this level are doing at least one of the following. They are spending more than 30% of income on housing. They are under-saving for retirement. They are relying on dual incomes with no margin. They are assuming future raises will fix today's math, or they received outside help. None of those are moral failures, but they are risks. And the reason this feels so jarring is because our mental model of housing hasn't caught up to reality. We still think of homes as stable, attainable milestones, but the numbers say something very different. So who can actually afford a $500,000 house in 2026? Households earning $140,000 to $150,000 a year.